Bioluminescent vines glowed around us as Lyra grabbed my wrist, her fingers trembling. Her silver eyes darted toward the floating palace above us, her mother's home. "Ethan, listen to me," she whispered, voice breaking. "You shouldn't have come here. My mother didn't invite you for diplomacy." Her breath hitched and she leaned closer. "She invited you because humans scare her, and scared things do terrible things." A distant psychic howl tore through the glowing jungle. The ground vibrated. Something ancient was awake. Lyra's nails dug into my skin as she whispered the final words. "You're in danger, and if we don't leave now, she'll feed you to it." Bioluminescent mist drifted across the forest floor as our shuttle sank toward the floating rings of House Cinderville. From the viewport, the Oryx Palace looked like a broken moon, its stone segments hanging in the air above the glowing canopy, linked by narrow bridges that pulsed with blue light. "Last chance to turn back," Lyra said beside me. Her markings, usually bright and fluid along her throat, had dulled to gray-blue. I tried for a steady tone. "If I skip your mother's invitation, the Concord reps will drag me back here in chains." "It isn't them you should worry about," she murmured. "Then who?" The shuttle jolted as docking clamps locked on. Whatever she'd been about to say vanished behind the careful mask she used around other nobles. Her spine straightened. Her voice turned formal. "Remember the posture," she said. "Hands open, head inclined, and don't touch anything that glows unless I say so." "That's half your planet," I said. The hatch irised open, flooding the cabin with warm air that smelled of sap and ozone. The docking platform was dark stone etched with shifting lines. They rippled under my boots, compensating for my weight. 2 rows of Oryx attendants waited, tall and still, their layered garments catching the bioluminescent light. Silver eyes followed me with curiosity edged in unease. "Ethan Reyes," Lyra announced in standard. "Human xenobotanist. Guest of House Cinderville." Lady Cinderville stood beneath an arch of living vines at the far end of the walkway, every line of bioluminescent pattern on her skin sharp and steady. A translucent mantle floated around her shoulders, full of drifting motes that swirled with each controlled breath. "So," she said. "Human." I stepped into the greeting stance Lyra had drilled into me. "Lady Cinderville. Thank you for receiving me." Her gaze moved over me, cool and exact. "The Concord finally sends something interesting. You are smaller than your files implied. Denser, perhaps. Depends what you feed us," I said. Lyra made a tiny, pained noise. Cindra's eyes narrowed, then the faintest smile touched her mouth. "Humor as shield," she said. The analysts were not exaggerating. She turned away. "Come." The forest dislikes hesitation. We followed her onto a hovering bridge. It flexed beneath us with a crystalline chime. Below, the canopy rippled with light, every leaf a tiny lantern reacting to our passage. Farther out, the glow broke around a circular blot of darkness, a basin of trees without a single spark. "The forest is incredible," I said. "Most of it," Lyra replied. A chill prickled across my scalp. Something brushed the edge of my thoughts, light as a breath. For a heartbeat I smelled home rain and heard my father swearing at a broken radio. Then the memory snapped away, leaving a hollow echo. I faltered. Lyra's hand closed around my wrist. "Are you all right?" "Yeah," I said. "Just dizzy." "The grove is close," she murmured. "It notices new minds." "The Whispering Grove?" I asked. I'd seen the name in restricted files. "I thought access was banned." "For most," she said. "Not for my mother." The central ring rose around us, a wide platform where stone flowed into living trunks and crystal growths jutted from the floor. Oryx nobles moved in small clusters, their conversations dropping as I passed. Inside the main hall, light came from strands of algae braided into the ceiling. A long table had grown out of the floor. As we entered, its surface shifted, lengthening, pushing out new seat. Bowls budded at each place, filling with steaming, color-shifting food that smelled faintly of metal and citrus. "Sit," Sindra said, taking the high seat. Let us see how well a human stomach negotiates. I took the place indicated near the center. Lyra sat to my right, shoulders tight. Across from me, an older oryx with pale markings leaned on his elbows, peering at me like an invasive species. So this is the human, he said. We are told your kind can enter a killing trance. That's one way to describe rush hour, I said. He blinked. The table pulsed under my arms, syncing with the rhythm of the room. The contents of my bowl glowed green, then deepened to blue as my heartbeat settled. Humans are volatile, Sindra said. Her long fingers folded together. Your history is fire and collapse. Yet you persist. You spread into hostile environments and refuse to die. More elegant species break where you bend. Her gaze pinned me. Tell me, Ethan Reyes, what does your kind fear? Silence rippled down the table. The bowls brightened, reacting to the attention. I thought of storms and empty bank accounts, of hospital corridors and the shaky signature on the Concord Treaty. Being erased, I said. Living and dying without changing anything. A subtle shift moved through the hall. The older male's faint smile thinned. The bowls dimmed to a steady hue. Interesting, Sindra murmured. And what will you do to prevent that erasure? As much as I have to, I said. She lifted her bowl. Tomorrow at first light I will show you one of our oldest sites. A place where meaning is negotiated. The slight pause wrapped itself around the last word. To new understandings. The nobles echoed the toast. Lyra's hands stayed flat on the table. I leaned toward her. What is this place she wants to show me? Her jaw tensed. She kept her eyes on her untouched bowl. It's nothing official, she said. Lyra. She let out a thin breath. It's the grove, she whispered. And you should not have come. The table thrummed, reacting to the spike in her pulse. On the far end, Sindra's silver eyes flicked toward us, the curve of her mouth sharpening by a fraction. From somewhere beyond the walls, a low psychic howl rolled through the stone. The dishes shivered. The sound scraped along my nerves like cold metal. The forest, and something buried inside it, had noticed me, and it was not friendly. The hall emptied with ceremonial efficiency once the meal ended. Nobles drifted away in pairs, whispering behind their veils of bioluminescent cloth. Each glance they cast my way lingered a second too long, as if studying a dangerous variable. Lyra remained beside me, guiding me toward a side corridor where the palace's glow faded into muted shadows. We shouldn't talk here, she murmured. Then lead the way. She slipped through an archway covered in woven roots that parted at her touch. Inside, the air grew cooler, dense with the scent of sap and mineral dust. Stone ribs curved overhead like the inside of some ancient shell. The glow strips embedded in the floor brightened under her footsteps but dimmed when I passed, as though judging my presence. We're below the main ring, Lyra said. The palace grows downward as well as upward. My mother calls this the archive vein. Archive, I repeated. Meaning what? History? Records? History she wants to control, she said. This way. We entered a chamber filled with suspended crystals holding swirling memories, literal oryx recollections imprinted into the stone. Images shimmered, war marches, civic ceremonies, alien suns rising over ancient fortresses. Some scenes pulsed so strongly they brushed against my thoughts. I stepped back. They're alive. Not alive, Lyra said, but aware enough to echo emotions. Do not touch anything without grounding first. Grounding. She linked her arm through mine. This. Her warmth steadied the static prickling along my skin. The crystal's whispers faded. You said your mother's taking me to the grove at dawn, I said quietly. Why? What does she want? Lyra stopped, shoulders shaking slightly. For the first time since we landed, she looked directly at me, no mask, no formal restraint. She wants influence, she said. Power. The council has questioned her authority since the last prophecy alignment. She thinks giving them something extraordinary will restore her standing. Like sacrificing a human? Lyra winced. Not exactly sacrifice. The ritual is meant to extract thoughts, memories, and fears. The grove feeds on them. The subject survives if the mind bends. If it breaks. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. So she plans to show the council she can control a human psyche, I said. She believes humans are dangerous, unpredictable. Your mind resists patterns the rest of us cannot defy. She wants to prove she can tame that. Well, she's wrong, I muttered. Lyra's fingers tightened around my sleeve. That's what frightens her. A soft thump echoed from behind us. Lyra froze. Through the archway, faint blue light seeped toward us, punctuated by slow, rhythmic steps. She found us, Lyra whispered. We ducked into a narrow passage where crystal shelves bent inward like frozen waves. The palace's hum deepened. Far above, something groaned, branches grinding against stone. She's not alone, I said. I hear 2 sets of steps. That's Varen, Lyra said bitterly. My cousin. He reports everything to her. Move. We slipped behind a pillar etched with spiraling patterns. Voices drifted closer. Her markings dimmed at dinner, Varen said. She's hiding something. She feels compassion, Sindra replied. A weakness she inherited from her father. Find the human before dawn. I don't want him exhausted. The grove responds best to clarity. My stomach tightened. Lyra grabbed my hand, dragging me deeper into the archives as Sindra's steps receded. I know somewhere they won't search, she whispered. We emerged into a smaller chamber where a circular platform hovered a meter above the floor, held aloft by strands of violet energy anchored to quartz pylons. This is a memory pier, Lyra said. Used for recording ancestral visions. It's shielded. They won't sense us inside. Are you sure? Step in. The moment we entered, the buzzing pressure in my skull vanished. For the first time since dinner, my thoughts were fully my own. Lyra sagged, releasing a breath. Your mother doesn't know this place exists, I said. She knows, Lyra said. She just thinks I don't. She sat on the platform's edge, her voice low. Ethan, I didn't warn you earlier because I hoped she would reconsider. I hoped she invited you to show goodwill. But when she ordered the ceremony, I understood. Our friendship made things worse, I said softly. No, she whispered. It made things clearer. She fears what she cannot control. You represent everything she can't predict. I sat beside her. So what exactly is the Whispering Grove? A biome older than Auric civilization. A cluster of semi-sentient organisms that evolved to feed on memory echoes. It communicates by touching the mind directly. Most species can't withstand the pressure. And humans? She hesitated. There are ancient records of a human explorer who resisted the grove, but the details are fragmented. The council buried them. My mother believes a successful ritual with a human would grant her unmatched influence. And if it fails? Her gaze dropped. It won't fail. It will break you or take you. I rubbed my temples. I need a way out. You won't get one, she said. The palace is sealed after dusk. Guards patrol every ring. The forest is worse at night. Then what are you suggesting? She swallowed hard. I'll help you resist. Resist a psychic forest? I said. That's like punching fog. Humans don't work like fog, she replied. Your minds flare under pressure. The grove relies on predictable patterns, but your species spikes. Jagged thoughts and contradictions. That imbalance might disrupt the ritual. I stared at her. You think the grove can't handle a human panic attack? It's possible, she said. But you must stay conscious. And you can't let it find your deepest fear. Well, I muttered, that'll be easy. I'll just think about taxes. She laughed, a tiny, strained sound, then quickly pressed a finger to her lips as footsteps echoed again through the distant hall. We need to leave before they sweep this area. We slipped through a hidden archway that spiraled upward toward the surface. The air warmed as we climbed. Through a gap in the stone ribs, the forest shimmered below, an ocean of blue light except for one circular patch of absolute darkness. The grove. A pulse of psychic static brushed my thoughts, sharp enough to sting. A voice, human but wrong, whispered my name. I jerked back. It spoke. It senses you, Lyra said quietly. And at dawn, it will reach for you again. We stepped out onto a balcony just as the palace lights dimmed for night cycle. In the distance, the dark basin throbbed with a faint red shimmer, like a heartbeat. Lyra touched my arm. Ethan, I need you to stay alive. Her voice trembled. Then stay close, I said. Far below, the whispering grove whispered back. And dawn was only hours away. Dawn on Viralun arrived without sunlight. Instead, the forest brightened from within, millions of leaves igniting with soft blue luminescence that washed over the palace like the glow of a distant tide. From the balcony where Lyra and I had hidden hours earlier, I watched the darkness in the basin tighten, condensing into a pulsing void. The whispering grove was awake. A resonance trembled through the stone beneath my boot. Lyra appeared behind me, pale markings dim, her hair tied back in a high twist that signaled defiance among her people. She held a set of woven cords in one hand, ceremonial restraints. They'll expect these on you, she said. But I didn't tighten them. I held out my wrist. You sure they won't notice? They'll be focused on the ritual, she said, looping the cords loosely. Once the grove starts, even my mother's attention will shift. As she worked, her breath hitched. If anything feels wrong, if it tries to pull you under, don't give it a direct fear. Distract it. Humans excel at that. I've noticed, I said. She managed a tiny smile before the moment fell apart under the sound of approaching steps. 4 Oryx guards marched across the balcony, their armor veined with pulsing blue. Psychic hounds led them, lean creatures with mirrored eyes and throats that glowed with internal fire. Human, the lead guard said. The matriarch summons you. Lyra stepped in front of me. I'm escorting him. The guard's eyes narrowed. Family bonds introduce bias. That's the point, she said. After a tense pause, he relented with a tilt of his head. The hounds sniffed the air and recoiled, ears flattening. Their handler pulled them back sharply. They smell your fear, he muttered. Good, I said. Maybe they'll keep their distance. We began the descent along a curved bridge that spiraled downward through drifting pollen. The palace receded above us, a labyrinth of hovering platforms and loops of stone. Below, the jungle spread like a glowing ocean, broken only by the circular void of the grove. The closer we got, the thicker the air grew, charged, heavy, humming with psychic tension that felt like pressure behind my eyes. Each step down the path seemed to drag at my thoughts. I leaned closer to Lyra. It's like something's tugging at the back of my skull. It is, she whispered. The grove tests minds before they enter. If it finds weakness, it whispers deeper. Comforting. Syndra awaited us at the forest's threshold, flanked by nobles in white ceremonial robes. Her mantle drifted around her like a halo of captured starlight. She regarded me with the calm of someone who believed she'd already won. Human, she said. The grove honors your presence. I didn't agree to honor anything, I replied. You are here, she said. That is agreement enough. The nobles parted, revealing a narrow trail carved between 2 towering trunks. Their bark glistened like obsidian. Beyond them, thick roots curved across the ground, interwoven like ribs of a giant creature. Mist drifted among them. Syndra extended an elegant hand. Shall we begin? Lyra stepped forward before I could answer. Mother, I request to remain with him during the ritual. No, Syndra said. Your connection will cloud his responses. It is necessary, Lyra insisted. His mind is unlike ours. He will need grounding. A ripple passed through the nobles, a silent exchange of concern. Syndra studied Lyra with a calculated stillness. You defy me openly, she said. I protect a guest of the Concord, Lyra replied. If he dies here, every alliance your house built collapses. Syndra's lips thinned. Very well. Stay. but every consequence will be yours. We stepped past the twin trees. Immediately the temperature dropped. The air grew thick, weighted with moisture and something sharper, like cold static. The forest light dimmed behind us, leaving only faint blue pulses along the path. "Don't wander," Lyra whispered. "The grove appreciates curiosity too much." Shapes shifted in the mist, branches, shadows, movement too fluid to be plant or animal. My breath fogged. A low thrum pulsed beneath my feet. We reached a clearing where a wide stone disk floated a foot above the ground, rotating slowly. The surface was etched with rings that pulsed inwards like a heartbeat. A network of vines draped from the canopy above, each tipped with a glowing node that aimed toward the platform. This was the ritual stage. Syndra circled to the opposite edge. "The grove will reach when it is ready. Do not resist immediately. It learns through the first impression." "And if the first impression is me leaving?" I asked. "That option is gone." She lifted a hand and the vines overhead straightened, tension humming through them like a plucked string. The floating platform stilled. "Step forward, human." Lyra squeezed my arm. "Remember, chaos, not fear." I inhaled slowly, then stepped onto the platform. The air clenched. Every vine angled toward me at once. The clearing darkened. A psychic wave slammed into my skull, not pain but impact, like being hit with a memory. My vision flashed with images. My childhood bedroom, the hospital hall after my father's accident, the first time I saw Earth from orbit. Each memory came and went in a blink, torn through too fast to grasp. Something vast in the grove reached into my mind like a hand searching for a door. A voice, not spoken but resonant, whispered, "Who are you?" My knees buckled. Lyra steadied me. Syndra raised her arms. "Let the grove begin its communion." The vines descended, curling around my wrists, my temples, my spine, not touching skin but brushing against thoughts. My breath hitched as the grove pushed deeper. More memories exploded across my mind. Arguments with my mother, laughter with friends, loss, joy, fear. Every emotion flared bright. The grove searched for the strongest one. I felt it closing on a point, my father's voice during the storm the night he died. No. I slammed the thought away, shoving a jumble of mental noise toward the presence. Bad pop songs, grocery lists, fragments of research notes, irrelevant jokes. The grove hesitated. It wasn't understanding the chaos. Lyra leaned close. "Good. Keep it off balance." Syndra's eyes widened. "Why is it stalling?" The vines trembled. A low, frustrated hum rippled across the platform. The grove pushed again, harder this time, shoving at my mind like a tide trying to drag me under. "Break," the whisper insisted. "Break and yield." I pushed back with a surge of raw, furious refusal. And something snapped, not in me but in the grove. A wave of confusion pulsed outward, shuddering through the vines. The floating platform lurched. The mist trembled violently. Syndra stepped back. "No, control it." But it was too late. The grove recoiled from me, its tendrils flaring like startled limbs. Lyra grabbed my hand. "Ethan, don't move." A psychic scream tore through the clearing, echoing through bone and root. The grove had tried to break a human mind. And failed. Now it was afraid. The platform cracked beneath my feet. The ritual had unraveled. And something far worse was waking in the forest because of it. The psychic scream rippled through the forest, shaking leaves loose like a silent storm. The platform beneath my feet fractured into floating shards, each humming with leftover energy. The vines recoiled from me as if burned. A deep vibration rolled through the clearing, radiating outward in concentric waves that made the air shudder. Lyra caught my arm before I could topple off the broken disc. "Stay with me," she said, voice tight. "The grove is trying to reset. It doesn't know what to do with you." "Join the club," I muttered, gripping her hand. Syndra stepped forward, mantle flaring around her like a halo of shattered light. Fear flickered across her features, then hardened into fury. "Reinforce the bonds," she commanded the nobles. Stabilize the ritual before the grove collapses. None of them moved. The grove's vines wriggled overhead, snapping away from their anchor point. The glowing nodes dimmed to a sharp, angry red. A dense shadow swelled near the center of the clearing, flexing like a living bruise. Lyra's eyes widened. It's trying to compensate by increasing pressure. That isn't supposed to happen. If the cycle overcharges. The ground lurched violently. A shock wave tore through the soil. Roots burst from the earth, twisting around the edges of the platform remains. One root struck the stone beside Syndra, missing her by inches. She spun toward the nobles. Contain it! Their response was a collective step back. It tasted human chaos, Lyra whispered. It can't categorize it. Instead of absorbing your fear, it's amplifying its own. A low rumble vibrated from the forest. The clearing darkened as the vines pulled into a single mass overhead. The shadow thickened until it resembled an enormous turning eye, one that did not blink but observed with a hungry, uncomprehending focus. The grove wasn't reaching for me anymore. It was bracing against me. Syndra glared at me, voice breaking through the roar. You did this! Human mind, unstable, poisonous. Your kind was never meant for communion. I steadied myself against a floating shard of crystal. Maybe your system can't handle a species that refuses to fold. Your defiance is destruction, she spat. The Council will see this as proof humanity is a threat. No, Lyra said sharply. They'll see your arrogance caused a crisis. Syndra's gaze lasered onto her daughter. Lyra, move aside. If I can isolate him. You can't, Lyra said. And even if you could, I won't let you. The mass of vines above us convulsed, then shot downward in a storm of tendrils. Lyra shoved me aside as a cluster slammed into the ground where I'd stood, embedding deep into the soil. The shock knocked me onto my back. A vine whipped toward Lyra, but she sidestepped and pressed her hand against a glowing root. Its light flickered under her touch, momentarily confused. Ethan, she called. It's losing its cohesion. You have to push back. If you let it regroup, it will crush everything in the basin. Push back how? I demanded. Do what you did before. Flood it with disordered thought. Anything it can't parse. I swallowed hard. My heart hammered, but my mind, chaotic, emotional, human, was already swirling with half-formed memories. Childhood fists on a schoolyard. The smell of engine oil in my father's workshop. Lyra's voice whispering warnings. The Concorde shuttle window, reflecting my face the day I left Earth. I closed my eyes, grounding myself in every contradiction. The grove struck. A spear of psychic force punched into my mind with brutal speed. It wasn't a whisper this time, it was a roar of broken impressions. 1,000 Oryx memories clawed at me like glass wind. The forest blurred. The air vanished. My chest tightened. Yield, the grove demanded. Organize. Submit. Clarify. I shouted inside my skull, no. I hurled every fractured image I could summon. Jokes, music, heartbreak, bad decisions, irrational impulses, the human mess of wanting and fearing and resisting. A storm of unpatterned thoughts burst outward. The grove reeled. Vines convulsed. The shadow collapsed inward. Red pulses blinked rapidly, then flickered into streaks of blue and white. The ground trembled under my boots. Lyra reached me, grabbing my arm to steady her own mind against the backlash. You're destabilizing its core network, she said. Don't stop. Syndra lunged toward us, desperate. Lyra, step away from him. I stood straighter, ignoring the pounding in my skull. Your grove doesn't get to rewrite me. Human stubbornness is corruption, Syndra hissed. No, Lyra said, stepping between us. It's resilience. The grove made one final attempt to strike. A massive tendril abandoned the canopy and slashed downward like a falling pillar. I pushed everything I had into a single chaotic spike. Rage, grief, stubbornness, hope. The psychic blow struck the tendril mid-fall. It detonated in a blast of blinding light. The forest screamed, a a sharp, fracturing cry that echoed through every branch and stone. The vines collapsed, curling inward like dying petals. The hovering shards of the platform drifted downward and clattered to the ground. Silence swept the clearing. The grove had shut down. Or died. Lyra sagged against me, shaking. It's over. Ethan, you did what no species has ever done. I exhaled shakily. I didn't do it alone. She looked up, eyes glowing softly. You gave it what it couldn't control. That's more than strength. That's choice. Syndra staggered forward, mantle dim. Her hands trembled, her arrogance stripped bare. The council, they will blame me for this. Lyra didn't look away. Because you caused it. The nobles edged backward, distancing themselves from their disgraced matriarch. Several murmured into their wrist crystals, alerting the council delegation stationed in orbit. You endangered a guest to prove your power, Lyra said quietly. And he survived something you believed impossible. That truth alone will unravel your position. Syndra's voice cracked. Lyra, you betray your own blood. No, Lyra said. I refuse to be bound by your fear. Statements from the nobles drifted through the clearing, accusations of unauthorized rituals, violation of Concord terms, and reckless endangerment. Syndra's mantle dimmed completely as she realized her authority had dissolved. Lyra turned to me. We need to leave before the council's envoys get here. I nodded. Fine by me. We walked toward the edge of the clearing. Behind us, the grove's collapsed mass pulsed faintly, like a creature breathing its last. At the forest's threshold, Lyra stopped. Ethan, when you pushed back, did you feel something else? Like what? Like old memories. Buried ones. I hesitated. Yeah. It scraped against things I thought I'd forgotten. She touched my hand, gentle. It didn't take them. You resisted. That matters. Humans are stubborn, remember? I said. A faint smile curved her lips. Yes. And now the grove knows that too. We stepped into the rising glow of the forest, leaving the clearing behind. The galaxy would hear about this, and nothing about humanity's reputation would ever be the same. You said. Next. ChatGPT said. Thought for 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Chapter 5. Echoes in the Council Chamber. The Council Chamber aboard the Oryx flagship didn't have chairs. It had hovering pressure fields, each tuned to a different species' bones and habit. I floated in a human-compatible bubble a meter above the floor, my boots caught by a faint downward pull, while 36 representatives regarded me like I'd just exploded in their lab. Lyra stood in a field to my left, posture rigid, markings dim but steady. Syndra occupied the central ring, mantle stripped, wrists bare. Without the drifting fabric and ceremonial glow, she seemed smaller, not physically but in presence, like someone who'd just stepped out of their own myth. High Counselor Therian, a being of faceted crystal and turning internal light, spoke first. Their voice reverberated through the curved walls. Let the record state, the ritual in the Whispering Grove was undertaken without council sanction, and a Concord guest was placed at risk of psychic annihilation. The words landed with the weight of a sentence before any verdict. Syndra's reply was flat. I sought understanding. Humanity's mind is an anomaly. It threatens equilibrium. The Grove was the safest controlled environment for testing. A scaled Keth representative flicked their crest, voice edged with contempt. Safe? The psychic shock wave destabilized half the basin. Echoes reached orbit. Our monitors registered it as a weapon discharge. And yet, said a soft metallic voice from my right, the human remains intact. All eyes shifted to me. Heat crawled up my neck. Intact is generous, I said. I'll be hearing that forest scream every time I close my eyes for a while. A few delegates made sounds I couldn't fully decode, halfway between amusement and unease. Therian's inner facets brightened. Ethan Reyes, junior xenobotanist, you stand as witness, not accused. Describe, in your own words, what occurred within the grove. I glanced at Lyra. She gave me the smallest nod. I stepped onto the platform, I said. The grove pushed into my head, like a hand going through a drawer. It tried to sort my memories, pull the biggest fears to the top so it could feed on them. That's what it's built to do. Several oryx on the upper tiers inclined their heads, confirming the description. But humans don't stay neat under pressure, I continued. We don't hold still. The harder it searched, the more everything tangled. Old jokes, wrong songs, grief, stupid regret. It wanted clean fear. Instead it got a mess. So it pushed harder. Tried to crush me into something it could understand. Therion's light shifted, thoughtful. And you resisted. Not with discipline, I said. I didn't meditate or chant formulas. I just refused to line up. I shoved more chaos back at it. The more I did, the more it unraveled. It broke before I did. A low murmur rippled around the chamber. An elder oryx leaned forward, eyes narrowed. You weaponized cognitive disorder. I huffed a breath. Where I come from, we call that being human. We don't fold cleanly. Sometimes we shatter. Sometimes we don't break at all. Either way, we're never symmetrical about it. Several representatives recorded that. I watched the phrase, "don't fold cleanly," ripple across translation bands. Therion shifted focus to Syndra. You intended to turn this very unpredictability into a spectacle. To prove that even a human mind could be bent to your will, thereby elevating your standing. Syndra's jaw flexed. If I had succeeded, we would now possess a method for containing a potentially destabilizing species. And because you failed, Lyra said quietly, we're forced to confront a harder truth. Therion turned to her. Explain, Lyravel of House Syndravel. She lifted her chin. We learned humanity cannot be mapped onto our old categories. We can't treat them as just another variable. Our tools for control don't work on them. Our predictions don't hold. That's not a reason to cage them. It's a reason to revise how we think. You speak against your own bloodline, the Keth delegate hissed. I speak for the Concord, she replied. Silence stretched. Therion dimmed for a moment, communing through channels I couldn't hear. When their light returned, it had cooled. Lady Syndravel, they said. The Council finds you guilty of unauthorized psychic experimentation, violation of Concord guest protections, and negligent endangerment of a stabilized biome. Syndra's gaze darted from face to face. What sanction? Exile from high office and from Virilun, Therion said. You will serve as liaison on fringe holdings where your appetite for risk can be monitored and constrained. The word exile caught in the air like a shard. For the first time since I'd met her, Syndra looked uncertain. Her gaze shifted to Lyra and stuck there. You traded house dominance for a principle, she said. Was he worth that cost? Lyra didn't flinch. He was worth preventing a war you would have started. Syndra's field drifted backward as enforcement drones glided in. She didn't look at me again as the doors sealed behind her. The chamber seemed to breathe. Therion turned their light toward me once more. Humanity has been difficult to place within our charts. Today's event confirms your cognitive profile lies well outside our established framework. Many see this as danger. Only many? I said. I figured we'd be at overwhelming majority by now. A statistically significant portion, Therion allowed. However, others see opportunity. To my surprise, Lyra smiled faintly. Your kind survived an ancient predator designed to digest thought. That changes every model built on the assumption that minds can always be categorized and shaped. So what now? I asked. Do you put warning signs on your worlds? Caution. Humans may cause system failures. Therion's core dimmed in what I'd learned was amusement. A refinement of that phrasing, perhaps. More importantly, we require new protocols. For that, we need advisors who understand both your species and ours. I blinked. You're offering me a job. An appointment, Therion corrected. Human Oryx Cognitive Liaison. Initially provisional. Your insight into your own chaos is uniquely useful. I thought of Earth. Crowded cities, noisy markets, arguments over trivial things that somehow mattered. I thought of the burning pressure inside my skull when the Grove tried to erase me. I thought of Lyra standing between me and her mother. If I say no? I asked. Then you return to your research station, Therion said. With a note in our archives as the human who broke the Grove. Others, less prepared, will be tasked with this work. I let out a slow breath. All right. I'll help. On one condition. The chamber tilted its attention toward me. No more rituals like that, I said. If anyone wants to understand humans, they talk to us. Directly. No more feeding us into old experiments and hoping we come out as data. Therion inclined their crystalline head. Agreed. The Grove, such as it remains, is quarantined. Its failure will be studied, not replicated. Lyra's field drifted closer to mine. You know this puts you at the center of everything, don't you? Where else would a walking system error belong? I said. She laughed softly. You terrify them. Do I terrify you? She considered. No. You unsettle me. That's better. The session adjourned. Fields lowered. Gravity reasserted itself. For a moment my knees threatened to buckle under the full weight of my body, and of everything that had just changed. We walked out together into the observation corridor. Stars stretched beyond the glass, cold and bright. Somewhere below, Virulun glowed faintly, its forests still humming around a wounded, quiet grove. There are older systems than that biome, Lyra said. Older engines built on assumptions that never imagined your kind. You think they'll come looking? I asked. They'll listen, she said. And now they know a new pattern exists. I watched the stars and felt, under the fatigue and lingering ache in my head, something harden into resolve. Good, I said. Let them listen. We're not going anywhere. The shuttle carrying us back to Virulun drifted through the upper atmosphere like a silver leaf. Clouds peeled away to reveal the glowing surface, the familiar swirl of blue forests, shifting root patterns, and rivers that sparkled with bioluminescent algae. The Whispering Groves basin, once a pulsating wound in the jungle, now sat unervingly still, its center darkened like a cauterized scar. Strange, Lyra murmured from the co-pilot seat. The resonance map isn't updating. Meaning what? I asked. Meaning the Grove's sensors aren't returning anything. No hum. No pulse. Nothing. Dead. Dormant, she said. But dormancy shouldn't be silent. Even sleeping organisms breathe. She zoomed in on the basin. The image flickered, then distorted with static. My gut tightened. Maybe we shouldn't be flying straight toward something the size of a stadium that just threw a psychic tantrum. We need to assess the damage, she said. Therion wants physical confirmation. And you want answers, I said. She didn't deny it. Her hands tightened on the controls. The ship settled onto a landing ridge above the basin. The jungle around us glowed in soft gradients of blue and jade. Wind stirred the leaves, each movement creating a ripple of light like distant waves. We descended on foot toward the basin. The air grew thick, heavy with lingering energy. A brittle hush clung to everything. I could almost hear the absence, like a missing heartbeat. Careful, Lyra said quietly. Residual psychic fields can spike unpredictably. Like the Grove having a temper tantrum? I asked. Like the Grove remembering it used to be alive. We stepped past the fallen arch of vine structures that once formed the ritual canopy. The shards of the floating platform lay embedded in the soil. The ground beneath them had cracked, revealing lines of luminous sap running through the rock like veins. This wasn't just a collapse, Lyra murmured. This was rejection. The Grove withdrew from its own network. I crouched beside one of the cracks, letting my fingers hover above the glowing lines. It looks like it pulled its consciousness inward. Into what? She asked. A faint vibration brushed my skull, subtle but distinct. Not an attack. Not a probe. A signal. Lyra, I whispered. It's not silent. It's whispering. She froze. Describe it, Like a single tone. Low. Faint. But structured. Not random. Try focusing on it. That's how it hooked me last time. This is different, she said. Earlier it pressed from the outside. Now it feels like something underneath. A remnant. A fragment. We closed our eyes. The forest faded. The breeze vanished. Beneath everything, like a buried echo, came the sound. Ethan. Not a word. Not even meaning. But an imprint of recognition. My pulse spiked. It remembers me. Lyra swallowed. That is not possible. The grove does not store individuals. Only patterns. Maybe humans leave different patterns. She stepped closer to the cracked ground. If it's remembering you, then one of two things has happened. Either a fragment survived or something new formed from the collapse. I exhaled slowly. Which one is worse? Both. The crack widened suddenly, splitting with a sharp, resonant crack. Lyra grabbed my arm and pulled me back as a thin plume of faint silver fog rose from the fissure. It carried warmth, an impossibly subtle heat, along with a sensation that brushed the edges of my thoughts. Not pulling. Not pressing. Studying. It's scanning you, Lyra whispered. Slowly. Cautiously. Feels like a stray memory trying to find where it belongs. She nodded. A grove fragment trying to reorient. But that means the collapse didn't destroy the core. It displaced it. Into the ground? Or into something else entirely? The fog curled upward, forming a spiral. I stepped back, but it followed, drifting like smoke drawn to a spark. My mind is not on the menu, I muttered. It's curious, Lyra said. Not hungry. That's not comforting. It should be. The grove has never been curious. The fog drifted toward Lyra next. When it touched her skin, her markings flared bright enough to illuminate her face. She hissed softly and stepped back. What did you feel? I asked. Memory resonance, she said, breathing hard. It showed me the ritual platform from your perspective. Your memories. Not mine. That's impossible. She touched her temples. The grove absorbed fragments before it collapsed. It's replaying them. But not as a predator. More like a lost organism checking the last imprint it recorded. So we're standing inside a dying brain that's playing flashbacks? Not dying, she said slowly. Rebuilding. The fog gathered again, thicker this time. It hovered between us, pulsing with soft white light. The air buzzed. My heartbeat quickened, not from fear, but from the distinct sensation that something was waiting. Listening. The fog coalesced into a single thread, then sank back into the crack. The fissure glowed once, twice, then dimmed. Silence reclaimed the basin. What just happened? I asked. The grove communicated, Lyra said, voice unsteady. Not an attack. Not an extraction. A message. Which was? She turned toward me with an expression torn between awe and worry. It remembers your resistance, she said. It recognizes it as a pattern that does not belong to any species it has catalogued. It interprets that pattern as evolution. That sounds bad. Not bad. Transformative. Transformations usually ruin my week. She frowned at the fissure. The grove isn't a single organism. It's a network. If a fragment survived with a new pattern, your pattern, it could regrow into something different. Something no Oryx has prepared for. So you're saying I accidentally reprogrammed an ancient psychic biome? You didn't reprogram it, she said. You infected it with humanity. I blinked. That sounds worse. It means, she said, drawing a slow breath, that the grove might rebuild itself using the one mind it couldn't categorize. Mine. Yes. And if it grows back? It won't be the same predator, she said. It might not be a predator at all. I stared at the dark basin, the faint silver glow fading beneath the soil. A psychic forest learning from me. Growing because of me. Adapting to something it couldn't break. Lyra, I said quietly. What does this mean for Viralun? For Viralun, she said. Uncertainty. And for the Concorde? Fear. And for me? She touched my hand, fingers trembling. It means you're tied to the grove now. Whether you want to be or not. A low hum trembled beneath our feet, brief, soft, undeniably alive. The grove hadn't died. It had begun again. And it remembered me. By the time we hiked back up the ridge, the sky above Viralune had shifted from deep cobalt to a washout indigo, the color of bruised glass. A sleek Concorde survey skiff had already landed beside our shuttle, its hull covered in sensor vanes and antennae that tracked every tremor in the air. Therian works fast, I said. Therian hates unknowns, Lyra replied. And right now, you and the Grove are the largest unknowns in the sector. The skiff's ramp dropped with a hiss. 2 drones glided out first, scanners swiveling toward the basin. Therian followed, contained in a mobile crystalline frame that hovered a few centimeters above the ground, facets dimmed to a thoughtful gray. Report, they said without preamble. Lyra inclined her head. Physical structure, partially collapsed but stable. Core network, altered, not extinguished. Therian's inner light pulsed. Altered how? I stepped forward. It remembers me. The drones paused mid-sweep, as if the sentence interfered with their logic. Clarify, Therian said. The Grove isn't just offline, I said. A fragment survived under the basin. It reached out to both of us. It pushed a replay of my memories into Lyra's mind. It was testing. You're certain? Therian asked Lyra. Yes, she said. What I saw weren't Oryx's impressions. They were his. Incomplete, but distinct. Therian turned their full attention to me. And what did you perceive? A quiet ping, I said. Not an attack. Not a pull. More like a machine checking if a signal is still valid. It didn't feel hostile. Just newly aware. Newly aware, Therian repeated. The Grove has existed for millions of cycles. As a consumer, I said. Not as a thinker. You built a cage around a digestive system. But it tried to break me and failed. That failure changed it. Now it's looking at the universe for the first time instead of just chewing on it. Lyra glanced at me, then at Therian. If that's true, then the Grove is no longer what your records describe. It's something entirely new, built on an unprecedented pattern. You mean built on a human pattern, Therian said. The air on the ridge seemed to thin. The drone's sensors whirred, adjusting. Call it what it is, I said quietly. It got infected with my stubbornness and refusal to fit. And instead of digesting me, it started copying that. Do you consider this advantageous? Therian asked. I thought of the crack in the basin glowing softly under our feet, of the whisper brushing the edges of my mind like a question without words. That depends, I said, on what it decides to be next. The Concorde erected a perimeter around the basin before sunset, floating pylons humming with containment fields and monitoring arrays. To the untrained eye it looked like a ring of slim metal towers with blue halos. To anyone with sense it was a bright neon sign that said, "We are worried." I'd expected to be ordered back to orbit. Instead, Therian had me assigned to a temporary lab on the ridge with a view directly into the scarred clearing. Is this what promotion looks like? I asked, setting a portable interface slab on the console. 4 humans, Lyra said. Apparently it's getting locked into proximity with the thing that nearly erased you. Comforting, I said. She checked a feed from the sensors. No external movement. Energy readings are low but constant. The fragment is conserving itself. Waiting, I murmured. For what? She asked. Either for us to leave it alone, or for us to answer. She studied my face. You want to answer, don't you? I stared at the basin. If we walk away now, the Concorde will eventually decide this is too risky and fry the whole region from orbit. If there's really something new down there, something that learned instead of consumed, we need to know that before they panic. You realize you're offering yourself up again, she said. I'm not offering my mind. Just my voice. With the Grove, those blur. I turned to her. I won't do anything without you in the loop. If it pushes too hard, you cut the link. Agreed. Her jaw clenched. You have an awful talent for standing on lines no one else will touch. It's a human hobby, I said. We're bad at leaving doors closed. She exhaled, long and slow. Fine. But this time, we set the rules. We set up at dusk. A thin cable ran from the perimeter field down to the edge of the basin, anchored in the fractured stone. At our end, it connected to a converter that fed into the interface slab. The idea was simple. Translate neural patterns into modulated pulses, send them into the residual network, and monitor the return. In practice, it felt like trying to talk to a ghost through a power line. Lyra adjusted the converter. I'll filter your output through a dampening band. That should keep the fragment from latching onto your full pattern. And if it chews through the filter? Then I rip out the power cell and punch you in the head. Effective. We adapt. She handed me a thin contact strip. Place this at your temple. Keep your thoughts focused. Short, clear intent. Intent, I said. Not fear. Especially not fear. The contact cooled my skin as it linked with my implant. The interface slab brightened, showing my brainwave patterns as shifting lines. You ready? I asked. No, she said. Begin. I closed my eyes and pictured the basin. Not the screaming ritual, not the collapsing vines, just the empty space as it looked now. Cracked, quiet, waiting. Hello, I thought deliberately, pushing the idea through the interface. You tried to break me. You didn't. I'm still here. The converter hummed. The cable vibrated faintly. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the sensors spiked. A low tone slid up through the ground, into the cable, into the slab. The lines on the display shifted, reorganizing into a waveform that pulsed in a complex pattern. My head buzzed with the edge of it, but it didn't slam into my mind like before. It hung there, at the periphery, as though respecting a boundary it hadn't recognized until it shattered itself on it. It's responding, Lyra whispered. But it's not invading. It's echoing your initial pulse with variance. Can we translate? I asked. Crude approximations only, she said, fingers flying over the controls. Pattern matching, not direct language. Do it. The slab processed, mapping the waveform into a rough visual grid. Peaks became symbols, valleys gap. After a long moment, a crude representation appeared on the screen, more art than alphabet, but distinct. What does that mean? I asked. Lyra stared. If I overlay this on the ritual data, it's aligning your resistance spike with its collapse. It's marking that moment as origin. Origin of what? Of itself, she said. A chill walked down my spine. It thinks it was born when it failed to break me. The basin trembled faintly, almost like a shiver. Another pulse came through, shorter, sharper. The translation grid scrambled, then stabilized into a simpler pattern. Lyra's eyes widened as she read the approximation. This one is clearer. What does it say? She swallowed. It's asking a question. Which is? She looked at me. It wants to know what you are. Not what humans are. What you are. I exhaled. Can we answer with more than a file name? She hesitated. Carefully. I focused again, shaping thought into something I hoped a newborn, half-mangled psychic forest could understand. I am human, I sent. I live. I break. I heal. I change things just by refusing to be what I'm told. The Grove's reply arrived faster this time, almost eager. The display flared with a denser cluster of peaks. Lyra translated, voice barely above a whisper. It's mirroring your definition, she said. Trying to apply it to itself. Is that possible? I asked. Ethan, she murmured, I think the Grove is trying to be human. The basin hummed again, faint but steady. Beneath the scarred forest floor, something we'd all treated as a monster had hit a wall it couldn't digest, and instead of dying quietly, it had started asking questions. For the first time since I'd left Earth, I felt it, Not just fear or anger or pride, but a jolt of reckless, impossible hope. Humanity had broken an ancient predator. Now, apparently, we were teaching it how to live. The hum under the basin didn't fade. If anything, it grew steadier, measured, rhythmic, purposeful. A pulse with intention behind it. Not hunger, not confusion. More like a heartbeat. The grove had never had a heartbeat. Lyra adjusted the dampening field, her fingers moving quickly, eyes flicking between the translation grid and the energy monitors. Its resonance is stabilizing. That shouldn't be happening this fast. You mean it's learning? I mean it's reorganizing, she said. That's more advanced than learning. I leaned closer to the slab as the waveform compacted into shorter, sharper bursts. Does it want another answer? No, she said slowly. It's trying to establish a pattern of dialogue. It's copying the length of your last thought signal. Like a child imitating speech rhythm. The next pulse came with a subtle shift, less noise, tighter amplitude. Almost clean. Lyra's eyes widened. It's refining its output. Ethan, it's adapting to you. Every hair on my arms stood upright. Can it read me right now? I asked. No, she said. The dampener is blocking deep contact. But it's learning around the block. That's new. I exhaled slowly. All right. Let's give it something simple. Keep your intent clear, she warned. If you project too much emotional noise. I know, I said. One step at a time. I closed my eyes again, focusing on a single idea, compact and steady. I am not your enemy. The pulse that returned wasn't aggressive. It wasn't testing or probing. It was, oddly, tentative. The waveform on the slab curved inward, creating a looped shape. Lyra translated quickly, her voice trembling just enough for me to catch it. It responded, not enemy, but also unknown.